Welcome to the East Suffolk Council Quality of Place Awards. I'm David Ritchie, the Cabinet Member for Planning and Coastal Management, and I'm also one of the judges. So a little bit of housekeeping. This is the first time that we've had an online awards ceremony. We hope everything will go smoothly. If there are technical difficulties, just please be patient. It is important that we keep our microphones on mute unless we are speaking. And of course, if we are speaking, it's a good thing to unmute. Also, be aware that after the ceremony, a recording will be uploaded onto YouTube and available to all if you search YouTube for the East Suffolk YouTube channel. And I'll just move out of the way of my camera, and you can see a picture of my car taken this afternoon with a snowdrift behind it. And I just thought I'd show you that, because had we been actually meeting in the council offices, we would have had to cancel the event. Most of us wouldn't have been able to get there, so good for online. This is the second time I've been involved, and it is one of the high spots of my year as a councillor.
I agree.
We have the same 4 categories as usual: community, landscape, conservation and design. We've had high quality entries in all categories, with the design category being the most hotly contested. I am the unqualified judge, but my fellow judges are all very experienced and highly professional. This year they are Peter Hill, Aldborough Society and retired principal planner; Pat Shepherd, garden and landscape design specialist; Tony Redman, historic buildings consultant; and John Lamont, architect. I've enjoyed the company of my fellow judges, and we've had some lively discussions, very lively at times. Did reach agreement. Having agreed on a short list, we embarked on 2 days of site visits. We made our own way and observed the COVID rules, and for me it was wonderful to actually go out and visit.
These are all the judges.
Somebody's not muted. If everybody can mute, that would help. So after several months of Zoom meetings, it's just marvellous to go out and do the site visits. And every site we visited did actually seem so much better in reality than it appeared on paper. I'm grateful to all our hosts, not just the award winners. Before we go on, I'd like to introduce 2 people. Lisa Mills, she's the officer who's done all the hard work organising us and the event this year. So Lisa, if you'd like to come in and say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Lisa. And Caroline Eperman, she's our new conservation officer. She's recently joined Robert Scringer's design and conservation team, and she'll be displaying the slides for each presentation this evening. So, Caroline, if you'd like to say hello.
Hello.
I can't see you. I can't. Oh, there you are. Good. Thank you. And okay, the first category is the community awards, and Peter Hill will introduce this. So I'll just say a little bit about Peter. Peter is a retired chartered town planner and restaurateur. He's presently chair of the planning at the Aldborough Society, but he was for many years Deputy Chief Planning Officer at Baber District Council, where with Constable Country, Dedham Valley, that sort of thing. So he has a specialist interest in conservation. And I believe that early in his career, he probably designated the very first conservation area when he was working in the Holland district of Lincolnshire. And as a restaurateur, he owned and ran the lighthouse. So over to you, Peter, a man of parts. Peter, are you muted? Peter?
Unmute. Am I on now?
You are on now. Thank you. Good.
Lovely. This award, the Community Award, was for any built or natural environment project that had been designed for the benefit of the community in which it was built. We were looking at community engagement with the project and the public benefit of the scheme. The first one I'm going to cover is St Michael's Church at Beccles, which we awarded the award of highly commended. It was nominated by John Bailey, a building committee member from the project. I unashamedly cribbed a lot of the information in his entry, so he may recognize some of my words. It's an active and much loved church, a 650-year-old Grade 1 listed building. It's in a prominent position in the centre of Beccles and overlooks the River Waveney. The scheme was to further adapt the church to 21st century life and use without compromising its splendour. Adding to accessible toilets and facilities which were provided 2 years ago, and with the font and dais having been moved to a more fitting position in the children's play area. With pews removed and floors levelled, the provision of a servery and reception area with modern and capacity kitchen facilities with the ability to cater for all manner of church and outside functions. It's now more suitable for weddings, funerals, wakes, cafe, concerts, arts and crafts events, and church and outside community and social events. The work was all done in keeping and pleasing to the eye. It's built in warm natural wood, which will naturally age with the church, and it gives the church a very welcoming and warm feeling. A worthy winner of the highly commended award. Thank you. Now, the prize, the Quality of Place Award, was decided to give it in the community section to Westleton Village Hall. Again, I've used the information in the entry because it was also well put, but I've kind of summarized it into a staccato presentation. It was a scheme, an important listed building, numerous social functions in serving a wide area and a varying demographic. It was a scheme solving problems that needed to solve problems of damp, safety, capacity, accessibility, and outworn, outdated, unsafe, and neglected facilities. It was a scheme of very careful conception, a long and difficult gestation, and an eventful hatching or giving birth to. It was a scheme ensuring protection and longevity of an important listed building that also provided foyer extension, an efficient kitchen, secure dry parish archive and workshop, a community room, a store and an office. And you can see from the faces on the picture how happy they are all with it. Not only was this a triumph visually, and as you drive through Westleton with the crown on the right, you've got this rather nice modern extension to the traditional flint building. So not only was it a triumph visually, it provided quality of place in the social sense and made a lovely village even lovelier. A very deserving winner of the award, of Quality of Place Award in the community section. Thank you. And John Shepherd from Westleton Village Hall committee is here to say a few words, and unless I've stolen them all.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much on behalf of the trustees and the friends of the Village Hall, and indeed all the people of Westleton. I'd like to thank you for the award. We're delighted and honoured to be selected. Obviously, we all think it's a great project, but it's really nice to be recognised by the experts too. And we're especially pleased to have won in the community category, because, as Peter mentioned, the project did involve renovating a historic Grade 2 listed building, the old village school, and also adding this wonderful new bright and welcoming foyer as an extension. But the whole purpose of the project was to create a special meeting place for the community and a real and improved focal point for village activities. So I'd like to say thank you to those who made it happen, which didn't include me. I'm a latecomer to the project, and recognise the dedication, skill and hard work of so many people, especially the vision of Tony Ingram, along with our architects, OWL, the trustees and others who got the project off the ground, reaching back up to 10 years ago, including Alex Alexander, John Bevington, Anthony Clough and Dan Ingram, and the building subcommittee who brought the project to fruition, Fiona Ireland, Irene Buse, Ken McGladdery, Chris Wood and Anne Ingram again, and who also dealt with a lot of unexpected problems, including removing asbestos from the roof and dealing with bats in the roof space, and brought the whole thing in on time and on budget. And that is very much thanks to our builders, Robert Norman, led by their site manager, Mark Adamson. And of course, all the other people who contributed in so many ways, creating the original concept, providing their financial expertise, doing the fundraising, making grant applications, making donations, making music, baking cakes, opening gardens, all of that. It's wonderful to have had the whole community involved. But of course, we opened early last year and the universal reaction was, wow, this is wonderful. Even in fact, from people who weren't all that enthusiastic about the project when it started. So all those surveys, questionnaires and consultations about what people wanted have really paid off. Of course, 2020 has been a very difficult year. We opened in February and then closed again by the lockdown in March. We made the building COVID safe, reopened in August and then closed again in November. So it's been a very difficult year. We will reopen again as soon as it's safe to do so, because we are a rural community, we have no bus service, and activities at the hall are a lifeline, especially for the many people in the village who live alone. We have lots of new activities planned, being led by Annie Groves, our new part-time centre manager, that will enable us to fulfil the underlying purpose, which is to make a wonderful centre for the village to counteract loneliness and isolation, which of course has only been made worse by the COVID epidemic. So thank you once again. We're delighted to be recognised, and I would like to invite you all to come and see the hall if you haven't already done so. It really is stunning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you to Peter. No, well done to you and the whole team at Westleton Village Hall. I've been on the Village Hall committee in the past, and it's always a struggle, and to pull this off, achievement on this scale, absolutely tremendous. Our next category is landscape, and the judge who will present the landscape category is Pat Shepherd. And I just say about Pat that after studying at Hornsey College of Art, Pat worked at the Derry and Tom's roof garden. This gave her an interest in landscape, and she spent 3 years at the Architectural Association School and 3 years at Writtle. This led on to a career in garden design and landscape and teaching at the Chelsea Physic Garden and at colleges in Suffolk. She is the Director of Architects 2. Over to you, Pat, for the landscape category. Are you there, Pat? Are you muted?
You need to unmute. Is that better? Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you very much, David. My past is in front of me. Thank you very much for your kind words and for introducing the nature and landscape category, and for calling me a specialist garden and landscape designer. My career has been very varied, hard work and lots of fun. I wouldn't have changed it at all. This evening I'll be talking about Sibton Park, a Georgian Grade 2 listed manor house, and additionally Heveningham Hall, which was a winner some years ago. This is the category for nature and landscape projects which benefits from the local environment. Decimus Burton built the house in 1827, and Capability Brown was also involved from 1782, so a bit of a gap of time. John and Lois Hunt purchased Sibton Park with the surrounding parkland in 2010. With the involvement of Kim Wilkie, a master plan was drawn up with the result that the parkland and lake were restored. The slide shows the extension of the lake and the new boathouse. Sorry, I missed the wrong page. No, lost a page. Shows the extension of the lake and the new boathouse with the views across. This is in the map, in the water meadows established. 5,000 acres were purchased, which is something, with the aim of rewilding this part of the estate. At the same time, refurbishing farm buildings and create comfortable spa houses and romantic spaces. Look, wonderful. The wonderful spaces to relax in. This is the Wilderness Reserve. I think we all ought to go there for a walk when all this is over. The right-hand slide shows one of the now refurbed cottages and a Kim Wilkie earth sculpture. Sibton Park now has mixed grazing, which provides excellent dung and associated insect fauna for bird life, bats, and has allowed the natural regeneration of more interesting grasses and wildflower species. The manor house used to sit on a semicircular artificial mound with widely spaced, there we are, deciduous planting framing views of the park. The mound was surrounded by low, I can't show you what I've got. The mound was surrounded by low painted post and rail fencing, which must have been grim, and was removed in order that a traditional ha-ha was removed and put at the edge of the mound. This has been reinstated, the original design of the house to be freestanding at the centre of the park. The garden restoration slides, as you'll see, show work in progress and the wonderful mature parkland. Look, there we are in work in progress. And you can see the ha-ha right at the back in front of the house. And there it is, all finished. Isn't it wonderful? Absolutely tremendous. We hope that the substantial investment to the estate will have secured the house and surrounding landscape as a viable and sustainable entity. Is a valuable entry to the nature and landscape category and a worthwhile winner. I think so. Let me introduce Guy Newton from the Wilderness Reserve and Heveningham Estates to say a few words. If you're there, Guy.
Thank you very much, Patricia. You did such a good job there that I've actually deleted half my points. But
carry on.
Thank you very much. It's been an amazing project. We've really enjoyed being part of it. And I think something to note straight away is the work carried out at Sibton is really integral to the restoration of what we're doing on the whole estate. You mentioned Kim Wilkie. We've collaborated with him for 25 years now. And I really believe the result of this is a subtle restoration. It's authentic with any original design, in particular Sibton, which had a lot standing for it beforehand. We've just added to it. To consider the master plan for the whole estate, we really believe landscape transformation is the key to of this success going forward. Landscape is fluid, it's a living element, and not just a backdrop to the historic buildings, which are stunning and created within that, but it's really a living part of what we're achieving. That said, we really want to. I'm here today really to say thank you. The approach that was taken for us to achieve this project wouldn't be where it is today without the input from a lot of members from East Suffolk. In particular, I know Argus, our estate architect, has done a lot of work with Nick and Robert. So we've received a lot of guidance and support, which has been great. I'll just quickly run through what we did. We touched on new woodland plantations, parkland restoration, lake extension, and then moving forward within management, we focus a lot on veteran oak maintenance, cutting regimes for wildflower meadows. The new woodland in particular is a classic Kim Wilkie capability design surrounding the parkland. But I think it's really worth mentioning beyond that, we're connecting a landscape, creating a habitat pathway beyond Sibton and really connecting plots of land typically isolated by arable land use, and that's really meeting our objectives going forward as a bigger plan. So really worth noting and looking out for what is done in the future with that, especially for us. But ultimately it's a success of us marrying historic landscape and our new intervention. And it's created an environment for wildlife alongside drawing in more tourism. So we can proudly say we've now got a bird count of 130 species and moths up to 430, which a lot were counted by Steve Pachowski on Sibton Estate, which is brilliant. So yeah, overall it's a great case study for a team effort internally and externally. And we look forward to working with everyone in the future and bringing forward more exciting landscapes and landscaping schemes over the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Guy, and thank you, Pat, for introducing it. I mean, I think it's simply stunning. So congratulations to Guy Newton and the whole team. And I'd also like to say I think I'm very grateful to Mr. and Mrs. Hunt for all the projects that they've taken on in Suffolk, at Henningham, at Sibton and elsewhere. So many congratulations. Thank you. Right, the next category is the conservation category, and the judge who will introduce that is Tony Redman. Tony is a conservation accredited chartered building surveyor and historic buildings consultant. He's a trustee of the Suffolk Preservation Society and also of the Historic Churches Trust. He lives near Bury, but I think I'm right in remembering that he has some responsibility as part of a committee which looks after the fabric of Westminster Abbey. Is that right, Tony? And over to you for the conservation category.
Thank you, David. Yes, amongst other buildings. So building conservation, this category is for projects involving buildings of local and historic interest undertaken with particular attention to the quality of the conservation process. These projects should help to preserve and enhance the character of the historic buildings and of course their settings as well. And the judges will always consider the inventiveness of the approach and whether the project has provided a new lease of life for a previously redundant or neglected building. There were some strong contenders for the awards this year, and the three schemes which rose to the surface presented the judges with a lot of opportunity for debate as to what constitutes conservation of a building. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. In the end, it was a close-run decision between the corporate client with a large grant and an opportunity to do much needed work to help interpret an iconic building and give it a sustainable future with a new use, or two domestic buildings, one a timber frame requiring substantial rebuilding, so much so that one could argue that this was something more than conservation, and another, which although modest in its appearance, had clearly involved some significant conservation challenges for the architect and the client involved, and who had employed pure conservation skills in the end to enhance the best parts of a medieval farmhouse, whilst designing a sympathetic modern extension to replace something unworthy at the rear of the building. All three schemes demonstrated flair and a concern for the original structure, even though all three showed a differing approach to the desire to retain the patina of a heritage building, which makes historic buildings so special. After a little debate, the judges were unanimous in awarding highly commended to the internal reordering of Aldborough Moot Hall, nominated by Tony Bone on behalf of Aldborough Museum Charitable Trust, and the work undertaken by Hudson Architects with interpretation by Iris Butcher and digital design and implementation. Stanaway Farmhouse in Otley, whose architect was Ed Fuel of Whitworth Architects, working on behalf of Felix Thornley Cobbold Agricultural Trust, and Wingfield House in Saxmundham, developed by Skinner and Salter Partnership with Hollins Architects, prompted the most debate. And after some considerable discussion, the judges decided unanimously to make Wingfield House in Saxmundham the winner. We were impressed by the demonstration of the passion for the building put into the scheme by the whole building team, working collaboratively with both consultants and others, and the attempt to reuse as much as possible of the remaining fabric. Although in all honesty, they created something rather special out of quite a lot of decayed bits and pieces, which others with less bottle might have given up on, to be perfectly honest. But the final scheme impressed the judges with the courage they have taken on this in the first place, and the concern for integrity in the selection of materials used for the reinstatement. Even if the judges had some reservations over the design of new elements incorporated and the surface finishes selected for the render and the roofing. Nevertheless, Stanaway Farmhouse was a close and worthy runner-up, sharing highly commended with the Moot Hall, and we were very pleased to suggest the Wingfield House in Saxmundham was the worthy winner of this section of the awards. I'd like to introduce Stephen Salter of the developers for Wingfield House to say a few words.
Are you, Stephen? Ah, here you are. Are you? Are you there, Stephen? You might be muted.
Need to press the bottom left-hand side button, Stephen, where it says mute, unmute. On the bottom left of your screen.
Depends whether he's using a computer or iPad.
Yeah.
If you're using a computer, you can alternatively just hold the spacebar down.
Okay, is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
it.
it is. Good. Welcome. We'll edit that bit out. Ho ho. Stephen, you are muted again. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
I can't see him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, great. I'll be quick before I lose something else for you. Really just like to say thank you very much indeed on behalf of the Skin of Suffolk Partnership for what is truly an unexpected honour and privilege. We've had a lot of great help from people like Mr. Scrivenger and Emily Bowden from Building Control. When we've had a query or a problem, you know, they've been only too readily available to help. It really was a true resurrection from beginning to end, and you know, we're very pleased that this historic building will be saved now for future generations. We've had a great sense of achievement from it, and it will make a lovely 5-bedroom house for a family. And I just really like to say thank you one and all. Great privilege. Thank you very much indeed. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you, Tony, for introducing the category. Stephen, many congratulations. I mean, you did take on one hell of a project, and I think all the people who know the town will be really grateful that now they've got a fine house where previously there was a rather unpleasant semi-derelict site. What a project to take on. I think it was your personal project, and you pulled it off.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. And the final category is the design category. And the design category will be introduced by John Lamont, who hardly needs an introduction, but he has been a qualified architect for at least 50 years. He was in private practice on his own account for 36 years, both in London and Suffolk. And for the last 10 years, he has acted as a consultant, sort of elder statesman, to place architects in Woodbridge. And of course, John, when you came on the site visits, you had a driver, you had somebody driving you who turned out to be a friend, who turned out to be a fellow architect. And that's Howard Nash. And I'd just like to mention his name because I think we got extra insights. I think the other judges who were with us would agree that having Howard there as well gave us extra insights into some very interesting projects. Over to you, John.
Thank you, David. I'll bring a whole panel of judges next time, if you like, because obviously we had very little dissent. I hope you can all hear me. Yeah, the design section, they pretty well stood out for themselves, the three that we singled out. The first one is CFAS offices in Lowestoft. We don't often get office blocks and commercial buildings because office blocks seem to have disappeared onto industrial sites these days. But since Suffolk Coastal combined with Waveney, which includes Lowestoft and Yarmouth, I mean, last year we had a winner in the housing section with some nice little modern housing in Lowestoft, and it's nice to have a larger area. CFAS stands for Centre for Environment, Fisheries, Aquaculture and Science, and it's basically a marine sciences research centre. It provides accommodation for 500 people, and those are not necessarily full-time staff up there, you know, who used to work in, I think it was called the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. They quite often put together teams of varying sizes, so it's not an office which has a continual staffing by the same people, and therefore it has to meet varying needs of the groups that get together. The site is prominent, southern end of the Lowestoft seafront. It involved originally a redundant red brick Victorian terrace, which included an old-fashioned seaside hotel. Obviously, Lowestoft, from a conservation point of view, weren't too worried about seeing this demolished, and a site was created next door to their existing 70s block, which some of you might know the term brutalist. It's a big laboratory block, very prominent, brutalist by name, brutalist by nature. We're never quite sure with brutalism whether the architects just intended to be bloody minded and be as brutalist as possible, or whether it was just lazy architects in some remote government department who couldn't care and put up whatever they felt like. But this definitely had the hallmarks of brutalism. I don't think the architects, who are called AWW, which is a regional practice of architects, they have offices in Bristol, London and Plymouth, and obviously they from their website you can see that they do these sort of not so much corporate but certainly government and local government buildings. The one they've designed here is basically an H-shaping plan. On the illustration photograph you got there, it's aluminium cladding on the right there with matching windows, glazing, and these screens which are perforated. They're aluminium screens, same sort of color as the cladding. Whether they're sunscreens, I suspect sunscreens is principally, the designer didn't mention them in his blurb. I suspect they're sunscreens, maybe wind as well, because glare, solar gain is quite a factor, especially there on the seafront. And then to the left, where it says CFAS, you can see some of the building is mottled brickwork, which is sort of quite fashionable at the moment. It's sort of light coloured with white specks. It looks like effervescence if you're a building inspector, but that's the fashion. And then to the left, you've got the curtain glazing, which is glass and aluminium framing, which the atrium, there's a large entrance staircase which gives access to the various floors. It's got, as you can see there on the illustration, it had quite a interest on the top floor where it gets great views of the coastline. You've got the cafe, but also there's quite an interesting library there, because obviously there must there's some quite interesting archives of marine science studies and what have you. So it's an archive that a lot of the work they do is worldwide studies where they get paid by governments all around the world, or bodies, or companies to do specific research. Whether Darwin's Origin of the Species is tucked away in there, I don't know, but it looked pretty interesting. And we did say it was a shame that they didn't have a visitor centre, because I'm quite sure that it would be very popular. Just to say that the interior of it, the architects, they carry their own interior designers and what's euphemistically called space planners, which basically they have to do. They want that office block, which is open plan, the floors there, to be flexible for the teams that come together, so that they can organize it, you know, to help with their work. And you can see from the ceiling, you've got the structural beams in black and the floor underneath in black. And then you have these white baffles, which are sort of, if you like, half of a suspended ceiling. But you can see the orange cable trays there. And obviously running these buildings is expensive. So they, the environmental, the energy saving costs have to be looked at very seriously. I mean, the services budget probably is something like 34%, something like that, of the total building cost, if not a bit more. And this one worked on the basis that the heat given out by all the machines and the computers and the Xeroxes, the lighting and the occupants, that is recycled, and by magic technology, they can do heat reclaim to either provide more heat for the building or cooling during the summer. So it's a welcome addition to see. In particular, I would cite that the value for money, I think it was 18 million, they said it cost. And when you consider that that includes the refurbishment of the laboratories next door as well, that is fantastic value for your pound, for the government department that commissioned it and the architects and their team that supplied it. So because they don't get anything like the budget of most award winners that you see either nationally or internationally. So well done to AWW. I don't think there's anybody from them to speak, is there? David?
No, there's not. There is somebody actually here, hopefully from CFAS, but they're not due to speak. It's only the winners, John.
Okay. Well, well done to CFAS. Where are you? Are you there?
John, I think you continue on with.
Yes, you can continue on.
Yeah.
I've
lost my screen, but are you there?
Yes.
Okay, so second one, Pittle House in Ufford. I haven't got the, I'll see if I can get the illustrations. Oh, there we are, they're back. Yeah, this is by the architect Peter Wells and his clients Simon and Ros Conway. This is a modest-sized traditional house that reveals some very subtle architectural content, which I'll endeavour to explain to you, with some contemporary character. Now, far be it from me to take a pop at planners and committee members and all that sort of thing, but the initially the clients and the architect came up with some resistance to their plans because both the owners are artists, so they would obviously have something to say about the design they wanted. and to work it up with the architect. And they wanted something more contemporary than this originally, but the planning authority, in their wisdom, obviously, and their clout as far as being able to tell people what to do, decided to resist the original plans, which were not quite sure. I didn't ever see any illustrations. They certainly had a single pitched, mono-pitched roof, not a traditional pitched roof that you see before you. Anyway, the architects and the owners were not daunted by this. They took them on and went to appeal about it, all the extra money and cost that involves and time, both for them and the authority. So one wonders why the planning officer couldn't resolve this with the architect and the owner. Anyway, suffice it to say that this is what they got permission for second time around. The main objection was that the planners thought it should be more traditional. So by that they mean a pitched roof, presumably, and by that they presumably were concerned about the general street scene in Ufford. It's not particularly distinguished as street scene in Ufford, but anyway, they were put through the mill. And I think actually out of adversity has come quite a clever building. You'll see there on the left, on the right-hand illustration photo, on the left there of the main building, which is pitched with a slate roof and slate hanging and white render, you'll see a little glazed extension there. That is a studio for one of the owners, and it's been set there to one side as an extension to give views of the site, because they were required, because the site had some mains drainage running across it, they were required to push the building up to the front of the site. And so that studio gets a lovely view of the garden, and there's a sort of annex block with another studio in the garden. If we've got a picture on the other side, can we just see if we can find the other side, the entrance side? Yeah, that'll do. You can see on the left there's a sort of another single-story extension, and that's opposite the studio on the other side. And what is quite clever is that those two extensions are sort of asymmetrical. They're not at right angles to the main block there. And it produces inside, I don't know whether we've got any photographs, a rather pleasant double height internal. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That gives the idea. That'll do. So you've got this entrance area and the main staircase going upstairs in the normal way. You've got a balcony there to the landing, so that and the glazing is set up. The external glazing is set away to the right, so you get quite a feeling of spaciousness, off which both those the studio that I showed you overlooking the garden is located. So it's actually obviously photographs as usual never quite do these things justice, but on that right hand one there you can see you've got a nice balance. You've got a nice landing looking down to the double height space, and that links that double height space links the sitting room at the front and the kitchen at the back. So it brings it into quite a pleasant open plan house with some decent spatial arrangement inside, not just four walls and a room. And the clients had and the architect continued to contemporary theme inside. So for instance, you don't get architraves or skirtings like you get in a Victorian house that masks the junction with the floors and the door frames. You get lots of clever recesses, which are very difficult to design, but that is the way it's done. Just to go back to the photograph at the beginning, which showed the staircase internally. Yes, on that staircase, the handrail there, that's recessed into the wall with a clever detail. So, you know, a lot of thought, care and thought's been put into the building, and I congratulate both the architects and the owners in getting the best out of their project and sticking with their beliefs, and they have produced something which is simple, elegant, and has definitely got some design pizzazz about it, despite the difficulties that they were confronted with in the first place. So have we got Peter Wells to say a few words, or Simon and Ross Conway?
Have Peter to come on, and I know Simon and Ros are on the call. Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for your kind words. It will probably make a few of your people on the panel here laugh when they hear about battles with planners. I think John might have over-egged it slightly in this instance.
Why not? We've got them captive. We might as well give them a hard time.
I'm not sure today is quite the place, but no. I mean, we had some discussions. We didn't actually end up at appeal, and we got. I think you put it quite well. You know, we ended up with a. It's always good to have some constraints to work with, and I think out of it has come an interesting building, which we enjoyed working on a lot. Actually, the studio in the garden, when I show people pictures of it, gets as many comments as the house, and that was an interesting thing that we designed to not need planning permission. So we took permitted development rules as our constraint, and hopefully Liz isn't getting a scale rule out as we speak and checking that we've complied. But yeah, very much a team effort. I know people often say this, but genuinely, myself and Keith Webber in our office worked on it very closely with Ros and Simon throughout the project. In fact, you know, they are as much designers of this building as we were. And I would say, to be fair, Mike, the contracts manager from the contractor, also was heavily involved in some of the detailing. I must say, as you'd expect, John, he hated the shadow gaps because most builders hate having to do that sort of thing. Having said that, when I looked at the photograph of the staircase, I think he was heavily involved in detailing the staircase and the handrail, and which I think works really nicely. And yeah, very much a team effort. Really enjoyed working on the project, and yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your award, and thank you for your kind words.
No, thank you, Peter, and congratulations. I just wonder if Simon and Ros might just like to chip in and say something.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this, because it's actually what a pleasure. Yes, this whole project really was quite extraordinary, because it did have a lot of ups and downs, but one of the most important things about it was that we worked with Peter, and the way we approached it is that that we wanted somebody to actually design a place for us, but we wanted somebody we felt we could have a good conversation with about how to approach it, and basically somebody to keep us on the right track. So it was. So the most important thing was that this sense of a kind of shared experience, and basically getting it right. A lot of the difficulties, as John said, came really were really, if you like, stimulus to the whole project, because we had to have it parallel to the road. So consequently, we thought, right, okay, this cross member could be parallel to the road, and the house can be a bit skew, which then made the interior very, very interesting. The staircase was, we deliberately had quite a wide staircase, and then the question was, well, where do you want to put the handrail? It was where, you know, we said, well, there's no point in putting a handrail on something you deliberately made very wide. Why don't we insert the handrail? And so, you know, the whole thing really evolved in a lot of ways. Once we've decided what the key structure was, a lot of it came in the evolution with working with Peter, working with the builders, who were extremely good, and really that idea that the building sort of harmonized itself, including the idea of inserting a courtyard in as a slot inside the building to create illumination, but also to give a little private open area right in the center of the building. Anyway, yes, well, thank you, Peter, and thank you all. It's a real bonus, this.
Thank you, Harrison and Wilden. And
yes.
Mike Bailey particularly, who was great.
Well,
wonderful.
Well, congratulations to Simon and Ros and to Peter the architect. I think it's a wonderful bit of joint working between two artists who are the owners and an architect. I think that's very impressive in itself. And I think it's a wonderful house with no false notes. I think the other two judges who came around the house, no one found anything to say that could have been done better. So well done indeed. And I'll hand back to John to talk about Gainsborough House, the joint winner of the Design Award.
Yes, Gainsborough House, Nacton, village, a village of. This is a well-resolved handling of a large mass. It's a big house, a substantial house, and the main intention of the architect, Craig Beach Architects, and his client Graham and Nicola Christensen, was to sort of break down the scale of it and handle it in a way where you could read the different elements. So instead of having one large block with a big pitch roof on it, say, and various extensions with gabled roofs or hipped roofs coming off it, dormer windows, this is an unreservedly modern approach. The three elements basically that you can see there in the photograph, on the right hand side, timber clad at first floor, is the main rectangular block, which you'll see a bit more of in a minute, with the brick base. In the center is a sort of almost 3-story brick tower with windows placed asymmetrically in a large expanse of brickwork. Then you've got a link block in the middle there, which has the entrance area in the corner there, which have opened up quite nicely, and the garage. And on the roof of that is a flat roof, paved roof, which provides access to, on the left, a home office, sort of like an annex. But they're, unlike most traditional houses and build an annex separately, this is all in one. And this was the intention of the architect, to break down the scale. If you get the next photograph from the garden, perhaps, Carolyn, if you've got one. Yeah, there you go. That's the main rectangular block, which has the kitchen on the ground floor on the right. Am I right? Yeah. And the sitting room over to the left, and it has that projecting brick bay. You can. The site is a lovely big site. But surrounded on all three, it's triangular and surrounded by sort of village streets, lanes on all three sides, but not busy. It's well wooded. The whole of the village in that part is well wooded and sloping. Although you wouldn't know it from this photograph, obviously, because that's all on one level. So again, rather like with the previous house, where they've cranked or bent the main block, you can see it's got a bend in it, which so that it doesn't read as a clear geometric rectangle. And those little cranks or bends that are often put into buildings like that do tend to soften the line. Obviously, this looks over the garden. You can see the slope behind with the tree up on the right. And I think this was a later development where behind that inside is where you come in from the the front door, and you take a couple of steps down to the living room on the left-hand side and the kitchen on the right, and they've got a dining room behind that double height window there. And I think this was an idea was to express that sort of hub, that main part of the circulation area, give it more light. Again, you get a nice staircase going up with a landing looking over that area. So you come in to the front door, you will then enter quite a nice, interesting double height space. We couldn't go in it obviously because of COVID, but there you go, there's a photograph, staircase going up. Similar design to Pittle House there, modern detailing rather than old style Victorian stuff or 70s or whatever. And that makes a very interesting space, obviously, and it's a linchpin of the project as a whole. Further photographs, I think, show the roof of the of that bigger block. If you've got them, yeah, that flat roof to the large rectangular block above the bedrooms and the sitting rooms. You can see where the crank, the bent bit is. That's got a sedum roof, a natural roof. There's a barbecue there, and obviously they enjoy views around the countryside. You can presumably see the River Orwell. The materials, as you've seen, just go back to one of the external shots. You've got mainly brickwork on the ground floor and to the large curved corner block. What you can't see there is there's a lot of clever detailing where the architect has detailed different bonds of brickwork, and some you can see obviously over the garage roof you've got double soldier course, and it's to a sort of old English bond. It's not a plain stretcher bond. And the same with the large brick. You can't see it from the photograph. And also where you had that double height sort of projecting bay by the dining room. There was a lot of clever brickwork detailing going on there, all to create interest. A little detail there you can see in the cladding of the timber cladding on the right hand, that large window, that actually has a panel of timber that opens as a window, if you like, because for ventilation and what have you, because these houses are double, if not triple glazed, highly insulated, and in this case, the sedum roof, under that sedum, the vegetation, there's a very thick layer of insulation. So energy conservation is everything, and the house is heated by an air source heat pump, so that it's presumably reaching quite a good passive house, which is a sort of gold standard of energy conservation. And you will not see any new building these days which doesn't have, which is architect designed anyway, which doesn't address this issue of insulation and energy consumption. So this was we've not seen a house like this, which is handled in three-dimensionally quite cleverly. Most new houses now go for the big statement of a big flat roof, great glass box, and in many ways quite boring. This is actually a house where the architect has worked hard with his clients to get an interesting three-dimensional approach, and they're all to be congratulated for the for the basic design itself, which says something, plus the standard of workmanship and the end product they've got. So thank you very much indeed. Craig, I think you're there. Perhaps you'd like to say a few words.
Yep, here. Yep. Many thanks, John, for what was a very accurate description of this house, and a good description of what we were trying to achieve by breaking it into smaller pieces. Thanks to this award, we designed this house as a response to, as John's described, a challenging triangular site. There's a large change in level across the site, and a woodland protection order, which left a small area of the site really to fit the house into in the middle. It's a large house, as John said, so we decided to break it down into smaller forms to limit its impact, and thread these forms through the trees and to stagger them up the slope of the site, with all these elements hinged around this central curved brick tower that gives access out onto the large wildflower meadow roof that you saw with the valley views towards the church. The idea being you can sit up on this roof in springtime, summertime, or indeed in the snow as we've got at the moment, and enjoy these wide landscape views through the treetops across the valley. The red brick was used really so the house remained in keeping with the houses to the north of the site. There's quite an old historical terrace facing down onto the site, which is largely red brick. And then we used the oak vertical boarding to really kind of match the trees on the site and weather the building into this woodland context, because you've got this contrast between built form around the site and the woodland context on the site itself. So the house was trying to fit into those two aesthetics really. It's a house that's a hybrid. It uses solid masonry construction to the ground and extends these forms into the slopes of the site. So quite often the walls extend into the landscape, as you can see there, to thread the house back into the landscape of the site. And it's got timber frame for the lightweight wooded clad volumes at first floor, again to kind of reflect that woodland setting. And the whole thing is highly insulated to form a very energy efficient modern dwelling with lots of eco technologies, mechanical ventilation, heat recovery, air source heat pump, providing heat to the underfloor heating, basically to kind of reduce the energy requirements of the house to an absolute minimum. I should really take the opportunity as well to kind of thank the owners. I know they're watching this, for commissioning the house and keeping faith through what was a lengthy design process and build process. And yeah, thanks again for this award. Really pleased the judges liked it, and I think it's great that East Suffolk supports such innovation in housing design in this way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Craig, and many congratulations. I have to say, this was one of the ones when I just saw the photographs, I didn't understand the house until we visited it. And when we came and looked around it, I thought it was absolutely stunning. It's a large scale project, and it must have taken a lot of doing for you and the owners. You say the owners are online, are with us. Are they with us? Would you like to say just a few words? If you're here? I can't think of their names. Craig.
Yes, hello. It's Graham and Nicola.
Graham and Nicola, yes, please.
Well, I think we were very lucky to find this site, and we had a vision. We wanted a house, a contemporary house with lots of glass in it to take advantage of the views across the site. And we found Craig by looking around to see type of work that different architects have done, and I think really we've ended up with a fantastic house which has met all, if not more, of the brief that we set. So it's been an interesting journey, the architecture design process. The first house I've ever built ourselves, with an architect. So that was quite an interesting journey, quite a long journey. But as Craig says, I think the process of feeding off each other to develop the ideas and draw out the best that we could for the site was really that was a very interesting process, and I think we've ended up with a wonderful house.
Well done.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, and many congratulations to you and to Pytle House that we saw early. Worthy joint winners of the design award. So that brings us to the end. I think I should raise a glass to the awards, as I've got one in my hand. And if we were all in the, could we take the? Thank you. So we can see everybody. Yeah. And I think if we were in a building rather than all in our own homes, there would be more conversation and talk. So is there on the line who would like to ask a question or say words, please? Open forum for a couple of minutes. Jump in if you wish to. nobody's jumping in. I say, is Robert Scrimger there, the head of conservation and design? Because I think we should thank Robert and Elizabeth Martin, our conservation officers, who've worked on this whole thing over the years, so that we do have these quality of place awards. So thank you, conservation officers.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Anybody wish to comment? Peter, is that you waving? You're muted. You're muted, Peter. I can see you talking. Peter Hill, judge, muted. Unmute.
Sorry. It's been an absolute pleasure to be a judge on the awards, and I think that as well as the very clever and deserving entrants, I think the big thanks must go to Lisa for lots and lots of complex organisation, and to you, David, for chairing this. You've done a lovely job and you've held it all together, and you know, full of admiration for you, and thank you very much.
So that's very
well done. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And final word.
Very interesting.
I would like to thank all. I mean, I'm the cabinet member, but I have enormous respect for the officers I work with, for Philip Ridley, for Liz Beaton. I know they get a lot of criticism because it goes with the job, but they've got broad shoulders. I can sympathise with John having a little go, but they have to administer the national rules and the local rules. They don't actually like turning people down. But you don't, do you, Liz? You don't like turning people down? No, she doesn't. Good.
No, I don't like it at all. I can see Peter laughing.
But on the whole of this year, this difficult year, the planning officers have continued to work. All of the planning officers, the conservation officers, the arboriculturalists, people have been working from home, and they've had in many cases, a bigger workload than normal, and they have all got on with it. So congratulations to them. And the final thing is, I'd like to thank everybody who entered. Every entry is a lot of work in itself. And we have a really good lot of entries, and we hope to have a even bigger lot of entries for next year. So very many thanks to all my fellow judges and all the people who worked so hard on this, and everybody who's on the call. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. For a lovely evening.
Bye.
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 Bye.